Crystal Boateng, lawyer by day, children's author by night. Thank you for coming in the studio and bringing your daughter Whitney with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. So let's jump right into the questions. So you were born in Ghana, but you grew up in Springfield, Mass, and you built a career in law. So what inspired you to start writing these children books, and especially the topic about your trip to Ghana?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Adele, for that question. So, I was born and raised in Ghana, came to Springfield when I was about 13 years old, and spent over 20-something years here in Massachusetts. And what really inspired me to start writing, it was during COVID. And as we can all remember, everyone was working from home, the kids were home from school. And at that time, my daughter Whitney here, she was about 4 years old, and she was learning how to read. And she wasn't really interested in any of those, Dr. Seuss type books. I would spend hours trying to get her interested in reading, and she just wasn't feeling any of those books. And so I decided, maybe if I found, and at that time she was really into princesses. So I said, okay, maybe let me find a book about Ghanaian princesses. And I couldn't find anything. So I said, okay, maybe I need to broaden my scope a little bit. And so I said, all right, how about African princesses? And I couldn't really find anything that was suitable. So I decided, why not? Why not just write my own? Something that Whitney could relate to, a book that had characters that looked like her and that other kids who looked like her could also relate to. So that's really what inspired me to start writing. And since then, I've written several other books. And at that time when I wrote it, Whitney had never been to Ghana before. And we had talked about it, but never really planned anything. So I wrote this whole story, kind of imagined, this little girl who travels to Ghana to visit her grandmother. And we published the book in November, and the following month in December, we got to go to Ghana for the first time.
Oh, wow,
so it was a really, really special experience to have with Whitney. And at that time, I only had one other son. Now I have two more. But yeah, it was great. We went with my mother. So Nana, who's in the story, we really got to experience all that. So it was a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Wow, super cool. Well, you're balancing a legal career and your work as an author. What do you hope your daughter, Whitney, and other kids like her learn from watching you do both?
Yeah, so I think that, in life, we all kind of have this calling, right? Sometimes we discover it early, sometimes we don't, right? But for me, just growing up, I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. That was kind of a given, I had to pick a career, and I felt like being a lawyer was the thing for me. But I always loved reading, right? So I went on to law school, I went to UConn, I went on to get my law degree and also get my MBA. So I did all that. I went to Mount Holyoke first. Let's not forget that. But anyway, but deep down, I always knew I loved reading and writing, and I used to write stories. Actually, my oldest brother found some books that I'd written stories in way back when I was about Whitney's age. And so for me, I guess starting this was something that maybe was hidden inside me, and it never came out until I became a parent and started reading all these children's books to my kids. And at that time, I decided, you know what? I need to do something. I need to put a message out there. And so you can have a career, but sometimes you also have to remember, right? What's your passion? And so you can do that. It's difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's difficult, but for me, when I write my stories, when I meet people, when I interact with educators and students and kids at festivals or in the classroom, it just brings me so much joy. And so it is a little bit of a balancing act, but it's something that I really enjoy doing, and so it brings me so much joy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure you're an inspiration to Whitney and all these other kids that you can pursue both passion and a career,
Absolutely.
Right? So representation in children's books is a really big topic, but why do you think it's so important for young readers, especially Black children, to see themselves in the stories that they pick up?
Yeah, so going back to Whitney's story, right? At that time, like I said, the books that I was trying to get her interested, she was not really interested in those books. And I realized that it was because she was not seeing herself in the characters in the books that we were reading. And a lot of times, we label kids as, oh, they don't like to read, or they're not good at reading. Maybe it's because the material that they're reading is not something that they're really connecting with. And when that connection is not there, that's where we have a gap,
There's
right?
no interest.
Exactly.
It wasn't written for them, right?
Exactly. And that's why it's so key for children to read books that have characters that look like them, because then you can relate to them and it makes you like, oh, that could be me, right? That could be my mother, or my grandmother, or my father. So absolutely, it's really important, and we need more books like this. Yeah.
And so besides, you know, representation, what motivated you to write these books? And I guess essentially, what was your mission behind writing this series?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started writing, to be honest, like I said, I was just thinking about my daughter Whitney, my son Leo at that time, and just writing a story for them. I didn't think that it would get out there, that other people would become interested in it. And then once it got out there, I started hearing comments, reviews, and I realized, oh, okay, this story is resonating with some people, right? And then I started getting calls from educators to work with different schools. And that's when I realized that the whole goal is to tell the story about Ghana, right? And I'm not, you know, not as a history book or anything like that. Something that's relatable to kids, right? Start off slow. And I think a lot of times when we think of Ghana, when people learn about Ghana in schools, it's about slavery, right? And that's a really dark and heavy topic to start off with when you're introducing a country to kids.
Absolutely.
And so I felt that, you know, writing about this, Afia the Ashanti Princess, a visit to the motherland, it kind of, first of all, when you pick it up, you wonder, what is this Ashanti? What is that about, right? So it piques your curiosity, right? So adults who are picking these books up for their kids will start wondering, right, what is this all about? And as you're reading through the book, you start to find little bits and information, interesting fun facts about Ghana, and it just piques people's interest. So my whole point is to get more of my books into classrooms, right, into schools, so educators can use these books to teach children about Ghana, right? But Ghana is a country. It's in West Africa. We have people who look just like people who live in America who also live in Ghana, right?
Yeah.
And vibrant colors or fabric, there's just so much more to the country that kids can learn. And even adults too, they can learn by reading my book. So my mission is to really connect with more educators, obviously get the books into the hands of more students, more homes, and just really spread the word and let people find out about Ghana and all the great things that are there in that country.
Absolutely. And I think you're starting this movement of reimagining, you know, introducing the kids of our city to, you know, this country that is a lot more colorful and vibrant and a positive introduction. Whereas, because you're right, you know, introducing them to Africa with the topic of slavery is very dark and can kind of be a little off-putting for a young child. So I think it's really cool that you started to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And so Whitney, I have a question for you. Can you tell me what your favorite part of your mom's books are?
Well, my favorite part of my mom's books are when they talk about Ghana so that people really get to know like the stuff that happened there and stuff. Yeah.
So for parents and teachers and just community members that are watching today, can you tell me how they can support you and more diverse stories and authors like you who are trying to pursue that in our local schools or in our homes?
Yeah, absolutely. So the books are available online wherever you buy your books, in local bookstores. The books are available in some places where I don't even know. So definitely do some online research and you'll find my books there. The books are also available in Ghana as well. So if you happen to travel to Ghana, actually, I just want to end with this story. So last year, we went to the African Festival, as we always do, and an educator approached me and she said to me, I bought your book in Ghana. I went to Ghana for 6 weeks or so, however long she was there, and she bought my book in Ghana. And so she found out that I was going to be at the African Festival. So she came to me, and because she wanted to have my books in her school district, the Lexington Public School District. And so that's how I made that connection. So sometimes you just never know where someone might grab my book, but yes, they're available there. And I found out that there are more authors who are doing independent publishing, putting out books like this, putting out these stories. And so find out where they are, get them in the hands of your students or your children or your libraries. Tell people, even if you don't have kids, buy a book and donate it to your local library. That's something you could do as well. Yeah.
I mean, that is an incredible interaction. I mean, moments like that make the world feel so small. That is crazy. And I'm so glad that you did make that connection. That's awesome. Well, Crystal and Whitney, thank you so much for coming in the studio and sharing, giving us a little slice of Ghana for us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Of course.